In this video, we will try to understand what are the different type of tests we can conduct by using the Visual Studio test system. Now, many times, people say that they want to test their application. Now, this statement is so generic and casual that many of the people do not realize what they are speaking. So let me first give you an overview when we say that what we want to test actually, or what exactly test means from a software application perspective. Now, if you look at today's applications, they are complicated, and you cannot really take one kind of test and say that okay, I can go and test the complete application. For example, if you look at today's application, they are mostly tied application. In other words, they have a SQL server, then they have data access layer, and then they have a business logic or the middle tier layer. Then you can have different kinds of user interfaces like browser, Windows applications. Probably you can also have SOA oriented architecture, or you can have probably services which actually expose your middle tier to the external world via the XML format, right? So if you look at today's world or today's architectures, they are mostly layered architecture with databases, with data access layer, with the middle tier, with 1cf services, and with different kind of UI technologies. Now, if you want to go and test these kind of systems, right, or these kind of architecture, right, you cannot really have only one kind of test. You really need to have different kind of test with different flavors for each of these layers, and VSTS test framework has all of those things. So the VSTS test system has four basic flavors of testing, or four basic flavors of test. The first one is the coded UI test, the second one is a unit test, third one is a database unit test, and the last one is a web performance test. Now we also have other kind of tests like load test and order test and etc. We'll come to that later on, but these four tests actually are the basic test which you'll need again and again, and each one of these tests are meant for each one of those layers which you have in your layered architecture. For instance, if you want to go and test your user interface, then you can use the coded UI test, because the coded UI test has the what you call functionality by which it can go and record and play your UI, right? If you want to go and test your middle tier or the data access layer, which are nothing but simple .NET classes, then you can use the unit test. If you want to go and test your database logic, like for example, when we say database logic, they are in a form of stored procedures, functions, triggers. If you want to test those objects, then you can use the database unit test. Now, in case you have ASP.NET applications, where you want to go and test your ASP.NET functionality, then you can use the web performance test, which actually can make post and get over the ASP.NET applications. So these four tests are the most important or the basic test which you will need again and again when you are trying to test your system. So for the user interface or for functional testing, you can use coded UI test. If you want to do the basic level of testing, or I'll say white box testing, then you can use the unit test. If you want to test your stored procedures, triggers, functions, you can use the database unit test. And if you want to test your ASP.NET applications functionalities, you can use the HTTP post and get. Now what we'll do is we'll start some practicals around these tests one by one, and then we'll try to understand that how we can use this test in our applications. So in order to create a test project, right, in VSTS, click on File, New Project, and we have a very nice template of a test template which exists in Visual Studio. So click on Test and click on the test project template and say OK. Now once you create a test project, you can see that basically by default it has added a unit test in your project, and basically it has created a simple project here. Now in order to see the different kind of tests, right, you can click on the project, right click on the project, and you can click on New Test. Once you click on New Test, you will be popped up with various templates here, which you can map with the previous diagram which I have shown. So you can see this is a basic unit test in order to perform white box testing on classes and DLS. In other words, if you want to test your middle tier and your data access layer, then this is the template you will choose. The second one is a coded UI test. If you want to verify the functionalities of user interfaces, if you want to do a record and play, then this is the type of test you will use. If you want to go and test your stored procedures, functions and triggers, then you're going to use the database unit test. Now let's not talk about generic test and load test for now. These three ones we can just leave it at this moment. Also you can see that there is a web performance test if you want to go and test your ASP.NET functionalities. So really these four tests, that is the basic unit test, the coded UI test, the database test, and the performance test, forms the base of forms the base test framework, for all the layers, what we have discussed in the architecture previously. So what we'll do is, now we'll first start with understanding the basic unit test. In other words, we'll create a very simple unit test and we'll try to understand how exactly we can go and test our middle tier, that is data access layer, and the business objects. So in order to show you a demo of unit test, let me go and add a very simple class library here. Let's say my maths. And in this my maths class library, let me go and create a simple class called as CLS maths, and this CLS maths actually has a simple function called as add, which takes two numbers, that is int num1 and int num2. Okay, and what this add function does is basically it returns back addition of num1 plus num2. Right, nice. Now what we would like to do is, we would like to use the Visual Studio unit test system, and we would like to go and test this add function which belongs to the CLS maths class. Now in order to create a unit test for this add function, what we can do is we can use the automatic way. That means you need to go and click on this add function here, and you can see that there is a nice menu here called as create unit test. So let's click on this. Now what this menu does is basically it automatically creates a base code for you, base code, by which you can go and test your maths library here. So you can see that basically it has created a class library here called as CLS maths test. So this is the class library here called as CLS maths test, and inside the CLS maths test, it actually created a simple function here called as add test. And this in this add test, if you see, right, it has gone ahead and created your maths class library here. It has provided the two inputs, that is num1 and num2, and it has also provided you a placeholder where you can go and specify your expected value. After that, it goes and invokes your maths class and then basically does a check for it. Now you can see that there is a statement here called as assert.inconclusive, and now this statement is necessary, in case you have not written any kind of test here for this for the maths class. But for now we have the test, so I'm going to go and delete this line from here, right? So you can see that by just a right click, it actually created for me the necessary what you call base code, and I can actually go and change this base code as per my needs. But for now, I don't need to change anything because it's a very simple add function. So I'll say that yes, if I provide him 2 and 2, I'm expecting output as 4. Right, now let's go and build this solution. So everything perfect. So if you see now what we have in a solution explorer, we have two libraries here. One is a my maths library, which is nothing but your class which you are actually testing, right? This is your maths class which you are actually testing. And the second one is the test project, which is actually testing your maths class, right? And this complete code over here, right, has been automatically generated when you right clicked and say that generate what you call a test code for it, right? Now in order to go and if you want to go and run this test over here, you need to go and click on the test menu at the top, then click on Windows, and then click on test view. Now once you click on test view, you should see your add test in your test view. So this add test is nothing but this add test, right? So go to your test view, right click on your add test and say run selection. Now once you do a run selection, what it will do is it will actually try to run your test against the CLS maths class, which we have created. And currently it should show us the test is passed. Why? Because if you see right over here, we have passed him 2 and 2, and currently our logic is perfect, so it returns the addition of 2 and 2, that is 4. Now let's say for some reason you have a defect here. Let's say this math addition is actually a subtraction, so the developer has made a mistake over there of basically subtracting the values rather than adding it. Now what should happen is definitely the output of the add function will not match my expected output, right? Because the output will be 0 here and he is expecting 4, and this test case should fail. So now let's again go and try to run our test. Now in this, it should actually say it is failed, and it is actually failed. You can see that, and you can also see the assert message here stating that basically he's expecting 4, that is he's expecting an addition, but probably it is giving it 2 minus 2, that is 0 out, and which is not as per the expected thing, and so this test case fails. So that's a very simple way of creating a unit test on a class library. Now, one big problem over here which we can easily see is this hard-coded values in our test. Definitely, when you want to run this test, you do not want such kind of hard-coded values like 2, 2, 4. Probably you'd like to provide values dynamically via Excel sheet, or must be via SQL server or some kind of a data source, right? So you do not want hard-coded values in your test. So how do we do that? Now, the good part is that you can provide what you call test data to your test by 3 different ways. So go to your test view again, click on properties, and you can see that over here we have something called as the data connection string. So click on data connection string, and you can see that there is a dot sign here. I'm going to just minimize this a bit, shorten this. So you can see that there is a property here called as data connection string, and you can see this 3 dots over here. Click on these 3 dots. Now you can see over here the VSTS test system allows you to provide test data by 3 ways. One is that you can provide data by using SQL server, you can provide data by using simple CSV, or you can provide data by using XML. So what we'll do is, for this test, let's go and create a simple CSV file, and we'll try to provide that CSV file as an input to our unit test, right? So the best way to create a CSV file is, let's open our Excel here. So let me just go and open my Excel, and let's say that okay, we have 2 inputs here, num1 and num2, and the expected output, and we have expected output also, right? So we'll say if I pass 1 and 1, I'm expecting 2. If I'm going to pass him 4 and 4, I'm expecting 8. If I'm going to pass him 10 and 10, I'm expecting 20, right? So also let's make one more here, 20 and 20 as 40. Okay, so we have 4 test data here, and we would like to pass these 4 test data to our unit test dynamically. So let's go and save this file, this Excel file, as CSV. So when you actually do a save as, you have to ensure that you're going to save this as a CSV, a comma delimited file, because remember that it doesn't take an Excel sheet, it actually takes a CSV or a SQL server or a XML file. So we need to actually save this as CSV. I'm going to say this is maths data, right, and this is stored in the documents folder. I'm going to save this. So let's close this. Save the changes. Yes, I'm going to save the changes. Save, replace it here. Right. Now, we need to provide that CSV file to this add test over here, right? So let's again go to the properties here. Let's click on the data connection string. Let's click on the CSV icon here. Let's do a next. Let's go and choose the file. The file is currently in our documents folder. So that's it, the maths data, and let's do a next. Now you can see over here it has read the CSV file, and it has given us the column names and with all the data. So we'll say yes, this looks very much fine, right, and we're going to do a finish. Now you can see over here a small dialog box stating that do you want to copy that CSV file to your project, because that CSV file is lying in our documents folder, and he is saying us that do you want to copy that file to your solution explorer. So I'm going to say yes, I want to copy that file. So if you see now your solution explorer, you can see that CSV file over here, right? So now and also let me go and fix back that defect which I had injected. So I'm going to make this as plus, and let me do a build. So everything fine here. Now if you go to your test project, right, you can see that it has put a nice attribute here called as the data source, and this data source says that basically CSV is going to be an input, and it is lying currently in your project directory, because remember that the CSV file has now been copied to your project directory. Okay, so everything all okay, everything nice here. But still one thing which we have yet not done is we have still not removed this hard-coded values, right? So in order to go and provide the values now, what we need to do is we need to write a small code here. We have to say test context dot data row. Now remember, the first column was basically the number 1, so we have to provide the 0 index here. So I'm going to convert this convert dot to int. So the first column data should be pushed to num1. In the same way, the second column data will be pushed to num2. Now the second column data will be 1 index, because remember that it's a 0 indexed what you call the data row is a 0 index collection. Okay, and we also had one more column, the expected value, that is the third column. Okay, so now what will happen is the VSTS unit test framework, you will actually go and read the CSV file one by one, row by row, and start pushing that data onto this add test and executing the add test and checking if the values are proper or not, right? So we are all set now. Now let's go to our test view. You can go to the test view from here if you wish, or else you can click on this test menu, click on Windows, and you can click on test view if you wish. So right click over here and say run selection. Now what should happen is we should see that there are 4 test runs made on this add test. So you can see that everything has passed for now. Let me just click here. You can see that there are 4 test run here, 0, 1, 2, 3. So the first test run was for if you go and open the Excel sheet, if you remember, there were 4 test data. So if I go here to my maths data, so basically we had 4 test data, and for each of these test data a test case was executed. So that's where you can make your unit test dynamic by using the data connection string property. Okay. Now unit test is a white box testing. Okay, in other words, you can use unit test to test your class libraries, which can be a middle tier, which can be data access layer, etc. Right. So in case you want to test anything which is related to simple .NET classes, you have to use the unit test. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we saw 2 things. We first went through the complete VSTS test system, and we saw that where each one of these test system can fit into our architecture, right? And then after that we started seeing unit test, and then we finally saw that how we can make our unit test dynamic by using a simple CSV file. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. In the further coming video, we're going to talk about coded UI test, we're going to talk about web test, we're going to talk about database testing, and a lot of those testing which we have discussed in the previous section of this video. Thank you very much.